Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. I am NadiatheRose, and as promised, I am back with my de-escalation story time. So in my last video, I said that I would come back and do a story time about having to de-escalate a patient for the first time. And this is that story time. So I want to put out a trigger warning that I will be talking about de-escalation. I will be talking about death. So if you're not in the right mindset to hear about that, then I would go ahead and click off this video. Okay, so for those of you who do not know, I am an ICU step down registered nurse, and I am also a new nurse. So technically I am off of orientation because my orientation was only 90 days and I was off of orientation when this happened. So I came to work like I do, whatever. I get there at 6:45, 6:30, 6:50, and I get my assignments. I believe on this day I was only given 3 or 4 patients, but everything is normal. It's 7 o'clock. Everything is fine. I check in on my patients, do my assessment. Everybody is good to go. 8 o'clock hits and I start my 9 o'clock med pass. While I am doing my med pass, one of the doctors comes and rounds on our floor, and I don't stop because I'm just in the middle of a med pass, and my charge nurse tell me what happened later. So as I get done with my med pass, my ADON, which is Assistant Director of Nursing, pulled me to the side and she's like, hey, so your patient in room so-and-so, he talked to the doctor today and he decided he wanted to be de-escalated. Now, this is a patient who was very much alert. He was just on a ventilator. I think it just hit him that he was never going to get off of this ventilator. His lungs could not support him breathing on his own, and that was my first time ever having that patient, so I didn't have a long relationship with him at all. But on this particular day, he just decided that he was ready. And mind you, this was an elderly man in his 80s, I believe. He had lived a long life, and this is someone who had coded, I believe, 3 times already in our facility, but he was a full code per his POA. So I hope I'm not using words I don't understand. He was a full code, meaning if something happened and he was to go into like cardiac arrest or something, we would do everything we could to bring him back. His POA was his power of attorney, which was his oldest son, just in case he became not in his right and productive mind. The son would make the decision. So when he was admitted, he was a full code. Like I said, he had coded 3 times before. I had only participated in one of the codes. So on this day, I'm not sure what did it. I wasn't in the room with him and his doctor when they had that discussion, but this was the day that he wanted to be de-escalated. So the doctor called his family and was like, hey, this is what he wants to do. He wants to get started right away. I don't remember exactly how far his family lived, but they were able to get there probably within 2 or 3 hours. So this was going on at probably about 9:30 when he said this, to which my ADON said, hey, do what you need to do first. Finish your med pass, make sure that none of your patients need anything, and then I'm going to assign another nurse to help you with this process because, not only are you a new nurse, but it's your first time doing a de-escalation. So I got with this other nurse and she broke down exactly what I need to do. She gave me all the consent forms I needed to have the son sign, and she told me all the drugs that we were going to use to get this process started. I met with respiratory, and we all just had a meeting like, hey, this is how this is going to go. It's about 10 o'clock, 10:30, and it's time to get the ball rolling. For you guys who don't know when you do a de-escalation, comfort is very important. So we have a few drips going, like morphine, and you're working with respiratory, because it's not like, I think TV has made it seem like you just go in and flip the ventilator switch and they die, and that's not what happens. And that shouldn't be what you want to happen. You want them to go at a steady pace, and you want them to not be in pain when this happens. So I go in first, I hook up my drips, my morphine. I explain to the POA, which he explains to the rest of the family, this is what they're going to do. So when you have them coming in, like, this is what, you do. So I start my drips, and I'm making sure, because like I said, this was an alert patient. So I'm asking him, I'm like, are you in any pain? Do you need anything? And then I'm also being mindful of his family. So as I am titrating his drips based on his pain levels, respiratories is also coming in and lowering his settings on the ventilator, so that we're kind of going together on this journey, making sure he's comfortable. So this was an all-day event. Literally, we started at about 10:30, and it ended on my shift. But so I'm titrating, I'm asking the family if they need anything. By this time, everyone is there. All of his children, all of his children's spouses are there. I think they even had one grandchild in the room who was of age. And they are just going down memory lane. They're having a really good time, and it's making me have a really good time. So unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, because this was supposed to happen, but about 5 o'clock, towards the end of the shift, as we're titrating, his heart rate is dropping, and I mean like in the 40s. His respirations are in the single digits. And so the staff were kind of like, okay, you guys, it's about to be a wrap in a few minutes or hours or so and so. So I go in and I ask the POA to step out of the room so I could talk to him, because he was relaying a message to his family, so I didn't want to tell him in front of his family. But I told him, say, hey, at this point, his heart rate is in the 40s, his O2s is in the 70s, 60s. He's about to become unresponsive very soon. And sure enough, probably within about 10, 20, 30 minutes of me telling the son that, he became unresponsive, lethargic, very tired, and he stopped responding. He still had a heartbeat, but he was no longer, his eyes were closed, and he was no longer responding to the family. This did put a damper on things, but eventually they all kind of just started talking to each other instead of talking to him. And so that is going on. I'm thinking, okay, well, hey, maybe this will not end on my shift. 6:50, 6:45, his night shift starts coming in, and they're like, we start giving report. So in the middle of my report, I get a call from telemetry, and they're like, hey, we are no longer picking him up on the telemetry. We don't have a heart rate on our end. So they normally lose, from what I was told, they normally lose the heart rate and stuff about a few minutes before the heart rate actually stops. The heart actually stops beating. So I stopped giving report to the night shift nurse. I go in the patient's room, and I don't know what it was. I go in there, they're looking at me, and I apologize, I'm getting emotional thinking about it. And they look at me, and they're like, is he about to go? And I was just standing there with my clipboard, and I just didn't want to answer. They had tears in their eyes. I didn't have tears in my eyes at the time. But it's like, one, that's outside of my scope of practice to be like, hey, yeah, he has 4 minutes. It's not, I don't know that for a fact. So I shouldn't answer that question. But I think he could tell by the looks in my eyes that it was going to be very soon. And he put his hand, I don't know why I'm so emotional telling this story. He put his hands his hand on his father's chest where he could feel the heartbeat, and then another child of his who's a grown adult. When I say child, I mean they're in their 50s as well. But one of them put their hand on his wrist looking for a pulse, and they looked at each other and they said, I got it. I got something, you know, like they could feel his heart rate. And by this time, the night shift nurse who's about to have this patient is standing right next to me, and she's putting her hand on my shoulder like, you know, hey, stay strong, like this is what we've been working on, this is what you've been working on all day, like this is what's happening. And so they put, you know, he has his hand, one child has his hand on his chest, the other one has his hand on his arm looking for a pulse. They have a pulse, they're looking at each other, and then I could just tell when they both lose that pulse. They immediately looked at each other and they cried. They cried. And I didn't cry. I'm a professional. At the moment, I didn't cry. Nursing is considered a profession. We don't get that luxury to cry in front of our patient's family. They cry and they step back, and me and the charge nurse, we look for a pulse. We don't have a pulse, of course, and we take a step back and we go back into the hallway. We don't say anything. We just kind of let them do what they need to do. And my night shift nurse was such a sweet soul. They were like, hey, go home. It's 6:56. Like, your shift is over in 4 minutes. Go home. We're going to finish the paperwork. Because technically, if a person passes on your shift, that's your paperwork to do. But they're very kind, and my assistant director was like, yeah, that's fine, let them do the paperwork. You know, they have less patient load anyway now, so let them do the paperwork. And that was it. That was my de-escalation story. It didn't hit me that night. I went home, I ate dinner, I felt fine. But the next morning when I got up to pray and, you know, read my Bible and stuff, I couldn't stop crying. And I didn't know why I was crying, because yes, it's always so sad when a soul leaves, but this was an 80-something-year-old man who passed, surrounded by his loved ones, who had lived a full life. So I didn't understand why I was so emotional. Even now, telling the story, why it was so emotional. But, you know, I think people who go into nursing, they go into nursing to help people, to save lives. And never in a million years did I think my actions, even though they were legal actions, even though they were what the patient wanted, I never thought that my actions would be helping someone to pass. It's just, you know, not something I thought of when I decided I wanted to go to nursing school. But that was not that day that it happened, but the next day it was very tough to deal with. But when I went to work, people were so kind about it. And I did not know this, because like I said, he wasn't my patient, but he had been there for months. He had been at our facility for months, and we only have a handful of nurses anyway. So they spent the whole next day just saying their favorite memories of him, how sweet he was. And it was just a really good way to honor him, to laugh at the jokes that he said and stuff, because like I said, he was very alert. And although he couldn't talk because of the ventilator, he could still mouth, and he would mouth the sassy stuff. I mean, even when I had him, you know, he was just, you know, making jokes and stuff. But that is my de-escalation story. I know that we did the right thing. I know that's what he wanted. I know that's what his family wanted, for him to go in peace. And I know hospice does it all the time. I probably, being at that facility, we've had several people be de-escalated since I've been there, but that was my first de-escalation, where I was the nurse who had to do the de-escalation. And I probably have to do another one, I'm sure of it. Not something that I wholly enjoy at all, but it comes with the job. But that is it. That was the story. If you guys have any questions, or if I didn't explain some kind of process right, don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. Before I end this video, I do want to say that if you are in a place where sometimes nursing or whatever it is becomes too much for you, get help. Don't suffer in silence. Don't hold it in. Check with your local hospital, see if they offer any kind of help, because I know we have certain amount of mental health days or speaking with, or professionals we can speak with after a de-escalation to make sure that we are okay. I didn't take advantage of those services, but if you ever need to do it, don't be afraid to talk about your feelings. Don't be afraid to get help. Nursing can be very stressful, not only for new nurses, but for nurses who have been doing this for years. So I'm a big advocate, or at least I try to be, I think I am, of mental health, and making sure people know is 100% normal, fine, acceptable. It should not be a stigma on getting help, especially when you need it. But that's it for now, you guys. I'm sorry that this video kind of took a dark turn. I probably should have been standing behind a more colorful wall. But that's it. So like always, I will post the next video soon, and I hope to hear from you guys. I hope you enjoyed it.